talk show that cuts to the truth, no matter how painful it might be, and no BS. Citizen Smith, Citizen Smith, Citizen Smith.
Here's a man who would not take it anymore. A man who stood up against the scum, the dogs, the filth. Here is someone who stood up.
It's time for Citizen Smith.
Good morning. August 31st, Tuesday. We took a few days off. The big guy was on vacation in Chicago. So when the big guy takes off, the little guy has to wait.
Gotta wait. I had a good time, though. I got with some mobsters in Chicago.
Visiting the big city, the Windy City.
So clean and nice. I'm sorry. I'll let you do your thing. But
That's okay. Let's talk about it.
so good.
I'm interested to see how a properly run city looks. First of all, you said no homeless people in the streets of Chicago.
You know, I did. If there's a homeless problem, you really don't know about it because I didn't see anything on the downtown streets, anything like that. It was just, it was a nice experience. I mean, everywhere you went, where the parks were and everything was clear and clean, and it was nice. It was really nice. Thank you, Chicago, for making.
Most importantly, though, share the greatest hot dog you ever had because I've never heard anything like it, and I'm going to fly to Chicago just to eat it.
So half duck, half beef, and then cooked
half duck,
yeah,
half beef. I've never heard of such a crazy hot dog, but it sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Natural casing. They put it in. They grind the meat. You said, and then they put it in a natural casing, and
then they cook it in duck fat.
What was the name of the place?
I have it written down. I'll get it for you here.
I wish you had taken a video. I mean, I would have loved to have seen
pictures.
this.
I took pictures. I didn't take much video because I was with my boys. You know, I was having a good time. Yeah, I got some pictures. I got a nice list of all the places I went. I'll share them later.
All right. So good trip for you, though. You stayed on Lake Erie at an Airbnb.
Lake Michigan, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, it's Lake Michigan. Yeah, it was nice. In Kenosha, Wisconsin is where we were. We stayed up there.
Very good. And now you're back, and we're ready to rock and roll here at Talkcast PDX once again. Thank you for joining us on Citizen Smith. In studio with me is Pete Lee, the vice chairman of the Democratic Committee of Oregon, and a good friend now. We've been talking at a bar every week where we share our political views, and I said, I must get you on the show. Pete, welcome to Citizen Smith.
I'm glad to be here. I finally made it.
Yeah. And you're very politically active in Oregon, born and raised Portlandian.
That is correct.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, first of all, you shifted from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I was raised very conservatively in a religious home. My parents are immigrants from Korea. We moved to Portland, and I think we got really lucky. This isn't the story of every single immigrant family. I think the thing that was the big game changer for us was that we had community that saw the history of their own struggles coming to America in our family. Community came around us, they supported us, and we ended up doing really well. One of the reasons why I'm committed to being involved deeply in the community and in civic life is because I want every single person in our country and on this planet to have an opportunity at a good life, a living wage, to be healthy.
Yeah, something the Republican Party didn't care about. That's why you left it.
Correct. I learned, maybe I don't. It's hard to say what happened. I don't know
because you were a Republican for how long?
Pretty much until perhaps my mid-20s.
And then the shift happened.
Yeah. So I mean, did I leave the Republican Party, or did the Republican Party leave me?
It was to your mid-20s. It wasn't into your a few years ago.
No.
Oh,
It's something, a transformation that happened when I worked for a little mom and pop company called Enron, and extremely corrupt. I ended up testifying against Jeff Skilling, one of the senior executives,
troublemaker,
and he went to jail.
A man who stood up for his beliefs and wasn't afraid to put himself out on the line.
I would say, like John Lewis, good trouble, good trouble, Ken.
Yeah, which leads us into today's episode and segment on the Nabisco strike that's going on, which you were like, Ken, you got to get out there and cover this strike.
And I was glad you were there.
Yeah. So we talked about it because I wasn't really up on it. And the more I read about it, I understood that this is a big deal. We have a union here that works at the factory in northern Portland in District 2. And you said, hey, they're going to be out there on Saturday, which we ventured out there then.
We did.
And I'm glad we did because I got to talk to Michael Burlingham, the vice president of the union. And he's also in the pest control division of the factory, which is interesting. I guess that's very necessary in a bakery.
Absolutely.
So the protesters were out Saturday morning. We were there at 10 a.m. and made our way around. There was also some politicians there, including Tina Kotek, the House Speaker for Oregon, state Republican or Democrat? Democrat.
Democrat.
I'm sorry. I should have known that. And Susheela Jayapal.
Yeah, Jayapal.
Jayapal, thank you. Glad you're here. And she's a representative of the Multnomah County Commission, District 2. And so first I talked to Michael, and then I have a little bit on Sheila's presentation. I was a little surprised that the politicians showed up. Usually, I don't know, do they get involved in strike lines like this?
You know, I can see your skepticism. The one thing I note is that I feel really lucky to have an opportunity to serve a party whose elected officials are out more on the front line supporting families and workers than folks in the public might realize. I'm not trying to ding everyday people. Folks are just trying to live their lives. But I got to say, our elected officials that I'm proud to serve in the Democratic Party, they really are out there trying to fight for everyday people, for people on Main Street. So it wasn't surprising to me. I was definitely happy to see them there, especially because it's been a busy legislative season as well.
So not only did you bring me out to the event in your wonderful Tesla, which was my first experience in an electric car like that.
Excellent.
You also were the cameraman, which I greatly appreciate. So let's start first then with my interview with Michael Burlingham, who I talked about the reason for the strike, what they were striving for, 3 weeks into it. And this is what he had to say. Let's talk about the issues that are pressing that you want the company to acknowledge and what's really brought you all out here for the last 3 weeks.
Right. The reason why we're out here striking is because the company is unwilling to negotiate with us in good faith. They're coming to the table with a list of demands. It's the same tactic that they used in 2016, and they are unwilling to negotiate. They're basically coming to the table with a take it or leave it attitude. So we went for 4 years without having a contract from 2016 to 2020. One of the issues that we've had is that in 2018, without negotiation, the company withdrew from our pension fund. This used to be a place that you can come to and plan for retirement, and that's becoming harder and harder to do now. So they did that without negotiation with us, the bargaining unit. So that is one of the things that we are fighting for, is to have reinstatement into our pension fund. Also, we've already fought and given concessions in the past to have things that we have today. Maintaining our medical benefits, our work hours, and that's what we want. We just want full maintenance benefits.
I heard that you're working upwards of 12 hours a day and you're opposed to that. Is that what's going on as well?
Well, the company would like us to do 12-hour days, but what we're doing right now is more of 13 hours, sometimes more. We have an 8-hour work schedule, but the company can force us to work an additional 5 hours. So at the moment, many people are working 13 hours a day on and day out, including weekends, and we can go several weeks on end without having a single day off.
So you're hanging in there 3 weeks, you're making sacrifices because you're not making money right now.
No, we are not.
What's the temperament of the strike? How long are you willing to hang in there and stay out of work?
Our morale is high out here. You know, we're in this to win it, And we're going to be out here as long as it takes for the company to come to the table and negotiate a fair contract with us.
Somebody raised the point that, well, they could always leave, shut the factory down, and relocate. Has that ever been brought up?
That's always the constant threat that the company doesn't flat out say, but through their actions, they basically have made that impression on us. In 2014, they shut down Philadelphia. In 2016, they downsized Chicago in half. And this year, they shut down Atlanta, and they shut down Fairmont, New Jersey. Altogether, that is 2,000 jobs, 2,000 U.S. jobs that have been shipped down to Mexico.
Is that a possibility then? Mexico could take the jobs you have?
Again, it's always that looming threat of if you don't accept the concessions, then you may be next.
So if you were to have a crystal ball and you talk to people and you have any sense of the company itself and where they're going, or is it completely in the dark right now?
It's hard to say what the company plans for the remaining U.S. bakeries, and that's something that we want the company to put in writing, is that they are willing to invest in the...
All right, we have a problem with the video. Anyway, we'll roll with it. So they were saying that the strike could lead to a shutdown of the factory. What do you think the chances are of that happening? You're familiar with strikes, I would think, being at Enron. Did they have a strike there?
Actually, Enron did not have a union.
Oh.
Perhaps I would have been less of an activist I'd become had I not personally suffered through that horrible experience. It's hard to say. I know that it's something we've talked about before. I'm very, even as a kid, I've been very interested in business and finance. And back in the day, I read the Wall Street Journal because I like much better quality news. I'm an avid reader of things like the Financial Times. And yeah, I think there is a really troubling global concern with companies who will, nuke pensions, not pay their workers fair wages, things that, everyday people could live on, all to save maybe a few cents to look at on a spreadsheet. And I gotta be blunt, Ken. I'm here fighting for people, not spreadsheets. I mean, these are the folks who actually make the products, not Microsoft Excel.
They're saying they work 12 hours a day and 6 days a week sometimes. And the pension is, of course, a concern that they withdrew.
Mm-hmm.
So these are always concerns of union. Sometimes the company gets to a point where they're like, boy, we could go to Mexico and not deal with any of this.
Which I think is absolutely disgusting. I was just looking on Wikipedia here earlier while we're playing the video. I remember growing up with Oreo cookies. It's Nabisco. And just for our audience, you'll hear me talk about Mondelez. Mondelez is the parent company that owns Nabisco. Oreo is apparently America's #1 selling cookie. It was invented here in America, and I believe that American cookies should be made in America. Why are we exporting something that is, a national treasure from a cookie perspective? Why would we do that? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and the CEO is making upwards of $17 million.
Right, and I'll use the Dutch pronunciation. I believe he's Dutch. Dirk van de Put made over $16.8 million last year. I was looking at the proxy statement for Mondelez right on the SEC.gov website to put this in perspective, because I think for lots of people, millions, billions, trillions, these are kind of crazy, weird Landia numbers. Speaking in very, very general, kind of good enough for this conversation terms, most average people in their entire lifetime will not make $1 million. This guy, every year, his total compensation package is about $16.8 million, almost $17 million. Every year, this person, one person at this company, is making the money that 17 more than what 17 average people in America will in their lifetime. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Wonder how this is going to pan out. I was interested to hear that he told us that they have strikes going on throughout the country at Nabisco's
That's correct.
locations.
That's correct. I believe it's over 1,000 workers standing on the picket line, not being paid wages. They're sacrificing their own financial stability to make a point that humans deserve dignity.
I wonder how this is going to pan out. This is like now it's getting interesting. It's like who's going to win this battle? In the past, do strikers usually take the advantage at this point, or does the company stand strong? By the way, they are bringing in on buses scabs
Correct.
to work the lines.
Mm-hmm.
So they could just go that route too and just develop this new crew of workers and say, see you later.
Well,
we kept the factory open. We're still in America making cookies. We're just not using the same people.
Right. I get asked this question a lot. And one thing I want to tell your audience is that I think people assume that because in my volunteer role as vice chair of the Democratic Party of Oregon, I have some sort of magical crystal ball through which I can see things that others don't. I just read a lot. I try to contemplate things about society and our economy a lot. And one thing I want to point out is that I don't have a crystal ball, but I will tell you and your audience what they can do. Right now, I say don't cross the picket line at the grocery store. Don't buy anything made by Nabisco or Mondelez. Don't buy Oreos. Don't buy Triscuit. Don't buy chicken and a biscuit. Just go to Wikipedia. You can see all the brands that they have. If we everyday people can be a part of supporting these workers. So I can't tell you what, actually, I'll quote Peter Drucker, noted mind for business philosophy. The best way to predict the future is to create it. So we can be a part of creating fair working conditions for these workers and their families if we help change the future by not buying products from Nabisco right now.
I hadn't thought of being an activist like that. Not much of a Nabisco buyer anyway. I usually don't buy that kind of snack food. Mm-hmm. They've been around since 1880, I believe, I've read. And their net profits in 2020 were close to $27 billion, is what I looked up.
I believe that's what I saw as well. It's massive.
Yeah, it's a pretty big profit.
Mm-hmm.
They're all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Factories. Correct. And they've really grown. I watched the food that made America. Mm-hmm. And on the History Channel, and they profiled the snack industry start and how it always starts with one guy and making something, and then they develop into these massive corporations, which I'm sure when they passed away, these gentlemen, they never realized how big it could have got. And this is just a massive company with massive profits. So why the hard stand? What are they worried about losing? What about just doing the better good for the general public and your workers?
You would think that. But I guess when you make almost more in 1 year than 17 people in America make in a lifetime, I guess these questions are just not worth their time. And that's sad and disgusting.
It's one of the bad sides of capitalism. And when they go to the stock market and to have shareholders that they have to please and trying to build their stocks. They are stock IPO on Nabisco. And
they're publicly traded.
Interesting to see how this plays out. We do have another video, but do we dare try it? All right, here's Susheela Jayapal, the Multnomah County Commissioner for District 2, which is this area where Nabisco is located, showed up, and she had some pretty strong words.
She did.
I am here because when I read about what Mondelez was doing to you and your families, I was outraged. And I asked for the chance to come and show my support for you. So I want to thank everybody who's organized this. I want to thank Portland DSA, Portland Jobs with Justice, for bringing us together, for letting people know what's happening here at this facility. Most of all, I want to thank you. Members of Baker's Local 364, I want to thank you and your families, because I know your families are in this with you. I want to thank you for fighting this fight, because you're not just fighting for yourselves, You're not even just fighting for Mondelez workers in Chicago and Richmond and Aurora and Addison, and there's one other place, Norcross. You're not just fighting for Mondelez workers. You are fighting for workers across this country who have given everything, over the last 18 months to keep the lines moving, to keep the goods moving, to keep our grocery store shelves stocked, to take care of America. That is who you are fighting for. And the time for this fight is right now. The time for this fight is right now because you are fighting for the workers who have kept our country going. You are fighting for the workers who have worked 16-hour days. You have worked 16-hour days and 80-hour weeks. You have made it possible for Mondelez to make record-breaking profits. You have made it possible for CEO Dirk Vanderput to take home millions of dollars a year, 17 million to be precise, while working families are struggling to put food on the table and keep a roof over their heads. That is why this is the time for this fight. Now, I read that Mondelez has explained that the reason it's trying to make the changes it's trying to make, and they are changes, the reason, it says, is to help you with your work-life balance. Yeah. It's to help you with your work-life balance. Do you think working 12 hours a day without overtime helps you with your work-life balance? Do you think working on weekends without premium pay helps you with your work-life balance? Do you think paying more for health insurance during a pandemic helps you with your work-life balance? No. It's not about work-life balance, it's about corporate greed. And right now is the time to say no to corporate greed. Let me hear it. No to corporate greed. And yes to putting people over profits. Let me hear that. People over profits. Right? That's why I am here, to tell you I see you, I hear you, you are fighting the right fight at the right time, and you have my complete support. You have our complete support, Speaker Kotek and the legislature and all of my fellow electeds. We are here for you. So keep fighting. As Speaker Kotek said, keep fighting. Stay strong, because you are doing it for all of our working families. Thank you.
Well, that's some strong words from the Multnomah County Commissioner, Susheela Jayapal. Mm-hmm. I was, again, surprised to see these politicians kind of speaking out for the union. Aren't these major corporations paying big corporate taxes to the county and important to the overall workforce and perspective of what this county has for diversity of jobs and companies? If we lost Nabisco, wouldn't that be terrible?
Well, I'd say that right now, something that is endemic to corporations in the U.S., and quite frankly, it's a global problem, is that if corporations are people, I expect people to pay their fair share of taxes. And corporations have lots of complicated, arcane, and just bizarre ways of doing accounting in a manner that minimizes the taxes they pay. It's pretty gross. Probably maybe a better topic for a future show. But yeah.
So they do have locations in Mexico.
They do. Which
are probably much more profitable. And the workers much less complaining about things.
Well,
but I wonder what their conditions are like.
To think that conditions here for a company that makes excellent revenue, who pays their CEO almost $17 million a year, if the workers here, in Portland at that Nabisco plant and at plants across the U.S. are being treated this badly enough to strike, can you imagine what it's like to work in a factory in Mexico? Probably terrible. Probably even worse. It's just horrifying, quite frankly.
Well, we will keep watching the situation. Mm-hmm. Who's going to win this battle?
Like I said, Ken, I can't predict the future. But you know what?
I'll say the strikers win, they get what they want, they'll get back in there, and business will continue. Because it's too much of a PR nightmare to lose the company to move to Mexico and for these jobs to be lost. I think they have more to lose by that scenario, because then you have the other companies across the country. They have to buckle. I say the union wins.
I want them to. And I think you and your audience can be a part of supporting these workers. Don't buy Nabisco products. Don't buy Cadbury. Don't buy Milka. Don't buy Philly cream cheese. Let's support these workers every day.
All right. I just, well, what
Huge
did
company.
I just, did I get, I usually buy the nature organic cream cheese.
I always
was
advise,
a big Philadelphia cream cheese buyer for a while.
I know that budgets are tight. I tell people, do the best that you can, but whenever you can, buy local.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, it tastes better.
Yeah. And in Oregon, you can do a lot of that anyway.
That's correct.
A lot of local stuff.
We're lucky.
Let's just switch gears really quickly here to as we round out the show. But I wanted to mention the Afghanistan pullout is complete.
Mm-hmm.
The last plane flew out on August 31st.
Mm-hmm.
And now the Taliban has declared victory over America after 20 years.
They can have opinions, I guess.
But they have a country that has their assets and money frozen.
That's right.
They have a country that's also dealing with climate change and water shortages and electricity outages and infrastructure problems that America, I assume, was in there building the infrastructure. I just don't know how far along they came with that.
Afghanistan is a complicated place. You can ask lots of countries that have tried to impose their will on Afghanistan. There are lots of things built, but a lot of things not. I'm sad to say that couldn't be done. There are certain things that just can't happen overnight. Even a country with the financial and military might of the U.S., 9 women can't have a baby in a month.
I was surprised to see that there's still 250 or so Americans in Afghanistan. From what I read, chose not to leave. Maybe some of them just were in a situation they couldn't get out and get to the airport. Mm-hmm. But they kind of used the terminology of the State Department that those who wanted to leave left.
Correct.
So there's 250 or so that are there that didn't want to leave. I'm wondering, who are these people? Why did they stay? They're risking their lives are in danger now.
Yeah.
I want to know the backstory of these people and what they're going to be doing there.
Yep.
Shocked me to hear that.
Yep.
And then on top of that, we got over 120,000 people evacuated during the evacuation time. That was pretty quick, and a lot of people to get out in a short. So people have been blaming Biden for the withdrawal and then the pandemonium that broke out and the disorganization. But that's pretty good, getting 120,000 out.
I agree. And one thing that I'll take my Democratic Party hat off right now. One thing I want to point out is that Afghanistan has been and will be a really complicated place. I mean, look at the U.S., for crying out loud. I feel like I'm the last person on this earth who thought that people would storm the capital of our country and break into Congress and threaten people's lives. I'm the last person that would have thought it.
Yeah, no,
so
I'm in there too.
if this is happening here in our own country, I think I urge Americans to consider that things are not easy. They're not a product. You don't just go to the store and buy a nation. You don't, just make things happen. It takes time. People are complicated.
Taliban is complicated. Afghanistan is probably the most complicated country in the world with their tribal warfare, and they got a huge challenge. I hope we don't get terrorists, in there that want to do something to America like they did in 9/11. That's my biggest concern, that is a harbor for them. And we'll see what happens.
Our national security is certainly important. I think that the war on terror has failed. And quite frankly, I think we really need to rethink how we've talked about it. And I got to say, I was a person who back in the day was more conservative. I supported the Iraq war. And looking back, I really regret it. I really do.
Yeah, I supported it too when it first started, and then it became a conundrum. I think it was good to get rid of the bad guys there and the leader. And all that, but it
Can't
distracted
you
us.
can't bomb your way to peace.
We've learned that, right?
Yeah.
Are we going to remember that?
I hope everyone takes a moment to think more about it. I really do.
We've been adopting this war philosophy since World War II.
Yeah.
Let's get out of it.
I agree.
It's a different world. It's a different war that we have to. It's more about building infrastructure and people's lives and social structures, than it is military might trying to force it.
I agree.
I mean, there's a certain point where you need the military, but let's choose and select it really carefully from now on.
I agree.
Damn. And last but not least, I just want to mention the Calder fire in California, which I was shocked to read today, is barreling down on Lake Tahoe.
Tragic.
And in the northern part of the city, they've been evacuating. It's a mandatory evacuation. 20,000 people. They're expecting 20,000 structures to be at risk of burning down.
Yeah.
So we've gotten out of wars that we shouldn't have been in. Now we got to get out of climate change problems that we're in, and wildfires that just don't seem to end and just keep growing. That's when Lake Tahoe's a threat, you really got a problem.
Great segue, by the way, from Afghanistan to this topic. I think it was about 25 years ago now. Those crazy hippies, and by hippies, I mean folks at the Pentagon, put out a report that's public. You can look it up. I don't know how to search for it, but it's definitely out there. Put out a report saying that one of the greatest threats to global peace and security is global warming, because it destabilizes agriculture, destabilizes our access to safe, clean water, both for farming and for drinking. Destabilizes, it just overturns the apple cart. And we really need to think deeply about that. The war that we really should be fighting, us as a nation, in our communities and around the world, is we need to fight climate change and global warming. This is a legitimate crisis. Yeah,
that's why I'm glad to see our focus is getting away from war. We need to focus on our own country, on the world,
right,
and environmental issues, like you just mentioned, and the climate change. So when I see things like the strike going full circle now, such a small problem that should be easily figured out, considering the greater problems we're facing as a society, as a country, as a world. First of all, let's just take care of the people that they get paid well and they live well. Easy enough.
I agree.
You're profitable. Then let's get the hell out of wars that we're involved in and save some money that we can put towards things that really matter to us, like Mother Nature and the climate and the earth.
Right. And one thing that I hear people worry about, and I think it's a legitimate question, is that they think that doing right by our planet is somehow going to lead us all to live in caves and eat tofu and wear rags. That's not true. And one thing I got to say is that in order to save the planet, to do right by the climate, to address this crisis, we can advance good things in society, good things in our economy, and good things for the environment. Unless you do all three of those things together, it's just not politically possible. It's not humane. And I just got to say, we can do all of those things.
It's a very challenging time. I say it's the greatest challenging time in humanity. Yep. I'm going to go that far.
Yep, I agree.
And we need great leaders.
Yep.
We need a great society.
We do.
And we need people to understand the problems and working towards a solution as a whole. Much to talk about henceforth, going forward. Thanks for joining me, Peter Lee. Good friend now. Always welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Whenever you want to talk, you just let me know.
I will, Ken.
I'd love to have you on more regularly.
And thanks to your audience for the gift of their time today. I appreciate it.
Smart guy. It's nice to talk to smart people. All right, that's it for today's Citizen Smith Show. We covered a lot. Very heavy, but very real and very truthful. I'll talk to you tomorrow.